I think that if you're really listening, or if you're trying to listen to your intuition and your gut, that's still not confirmation that you're going to go the right way. Nobody knows the right way. You can only try it out, at which point you'll discover if it was right or if it wasn't. And I think that I've done that a lot in my life, and I continue to try. And I think that that's the most admirable part that you can do, is try, and then try to enjoy the ride, regardless if it's where you wanted to end up or get to. Enjoy the mistake if it ends up being a mistake. Find the lesson in it, feel the feelings around it, and grow up.
First, thank you for being here. I know I've said that off record, but on record, thanks for being here, Nahko. I want to share how I found you. You've been an artist that has tracked with me for almost 6 years. I was in a group that was high motivation, high discipline, go, entrepreneurship, mastermind, the whole deal. And it was the first time I'd ever really personally started to grow and expand. At that point, I'd read a book called Many Lives, Many Masters, which was a really cool opening to spirituality for me. And down the rabbit hole I went. It took me to plant medicine, where I found you. And that environment and your music was a part of the ceremony and some of those things. That's not what got me. That was just kind of in passing. There was a song that was not a part of that initial introduction to your music that I found later, called We Are on Time. At the time, I was building a company to teach kids about money, because nobody does that. It's fucking wild that education skipped that part.
Big time.
And I was going to these big pitches in front of hundreds of investors to raise capital. And I had a good stage presence. I had a good pitch, but I couldn't quite land a yes. And I would get in my car and I'd be super emotional. I'd feel like I couldn't make this happen. It wasn't for me. And I would sit there in my emotions and sort of hope would remain there. But I also felt this wave of like, is this ever going to happen to me? Will success ever find me? And I'd play that song, We Are on Time. And it was such a reminder of like, not just patience. I don't think patience summates it well. It was almost trust. It was faith from a different lens. Could I also continue down the path and recognize that there were things out of my, but I had to commit to this journey, and I had to commit there. And I would listen to the song over and over and over. And it turned me on to your entire discography. And I very rarely file an entire discography with an artist. I can actually name it on like a couple hands. But what I've learned by following your music over the years is that, you've evolved, your music has evolved, and that's been such a cool thing to follow along, is to watch an artist shed their skin and shape again. So I'm so excited to be here, man. This is like seeing a version of you here today is like seeing a catalog of my versions, because I'm recalled of all the different people I've been as I listen to your music.
Culmination.
Indeed.
I love that. How did you who introduced you to We Are on Time? Was a friend of yours, you said?
It was I used to you as an artist through like a group that was doing plant medicine together, and that was and then I kept going down the rabbit hole.
Copy. Love that. Man. Yeah.
The thing that fascinates me the most about artistry is that I think externally people assume that you kind of find a style and then you stick with it, or you find a theme and you stick with it. You find an identity and you stick with it. But I know that in the inside of it, you're constantly going through the shedding of skin and the building of a new version of you. That process seems so cool, but like it totally sucks to go through and like rebuild yourself. You've had to do this a lot. Like I got to go through all of your history as much as I could find. And man, you've been through hard stuff, hard things with family, hard things with music, just hard things. Like, what keeps you going? What do you do when you're at the crossroads of like, do I keep doing this, or do I just stop?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. Wonderful to be here. And thanks for sharing that story. I was just thinking about the time that I wrote it and where I was at in my life. And, I guess it relates to the question you just asked, because when I wrote that song, I was at a crossroads as again in my life. And I was trying to decide if I even believed what I was saying, you know, and I think that a lot of times when I write music or songs and the lyrics, they are oftentimes what I would like to be saying to myself to believe that it's true, you know, and it's a feeling that I believe is true. And, there's that commitment in the song that says like, I'll be your compass, North Star, no matter what, it's always the right time. And I think 10 years later, I think I wrote another line that was like, the bad timing is always the right time. And I think I know that I often wrote those kinds of lyrics out of the irony of having to learn things the hard way. You may hear these adages along the way and think, wow, that sounds just about right. And you may not have really learned the depth of what it really means until later. So, every experience that I've had in life that has caused me to pause, whether that be, consensually or not, you have to step back and go like, oh shit. Okay. You say what? And there isn't one answer for it, right? I think, if I could find an answer, an overarching answer for what is it that, keeps me going, I guess, it's the I can't find the right word in this moment, but it's this ever present desire, to know the truth, to find a solution, and to have that feeling inside of me that feels like it's right. I never liked the feeling of dishonesty or cheating through an idea, and I think that comes from having been an athlete for so long as a young person. You're scored by the game, and the game has rules, and life has rules, as much as you would like to bend them. And they can be bent. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work in your favor or work correctly once you try to redesign it. There's never a straight answer, and there's never a straight and narrow road when it comes to understanding what life throws at you.
I feel that one. When you were playing sports growing up, were you also playing music at the same time?
A little bit. I transitioned away from sports to focus on music, but at least in terms of being on a team, like an official team. But I've always played sports outside of that. But
heck yes.
Yeah, it was like sports focus, like every sport. And I forgot to ask you, should I curb the sailor mouth that I have?
Nah, bring it.
I was like putting on my dad hat there.
No, all good, bro.
Yeah, we did every sport, man. Every sport, lots of teams. But I was really a really good pitcher. And a good forward in soccer. So I was really into that. But once I transitioned away from that, I was really focused on music. That was really kind of like, the main focus there.
Was the dream ever sports?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, I feel like
Yeah.
everybody, the answer is yes, but had to ask.
Yeah. I mean, it was sort of like my dad's dream, really, because he had
Hmm.
done sports for a long time. He was sort of one of those, what it felt like was a very typical dad living through his son.
Yeah.
I was clearly very talented at it. Um, and so, his dream became mine. I, you know, growing up in the Pacific Northwest, it was like, you had, you had Ken Griffey Jr., I even was like big Nolan Ryan fan, um, you know, um, big Seattle fan, big Arizona fan, Dodgers fan, all West Coast kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, we listened to a lot of music growing up, at the same time. But a lot of the music that I grew up on in that era was pretty like controlled. So with my parents, I was allowed to listen to mostly religious Christian music, but even in that regard, there was a cap on how secular it could get. So a lot of like, alternative Christian music, like Jars of Clay, like, even to the farther extent of like Relient K or, that kind of genre, like that was a definite no. So that's the kind of stuff that I would, listen to with friends, friends' houses. But I had a radio underneath my bed and, at
Ooh, nice.
nighttime, oh yeah, I was sneaking the pop radio and the, the alternative radio stations at nighttime, just soaking up, mainstream music. And yeah, I would just listen to that. And then I'd listen to fucking Loveline. And, I don't know. I feel like a lot of kids like grew up and we're in our, 30s and 40s now. And like, we're all going like, yeah, remember when we learned about show Loveline?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, and, just because of show homeschooling, not great for sex ed, but is what it is.
Yeah. That time period is so fascinating to me too, compared to now. I mean, I have a 2-year-old and his access to the world is infinite. Whereas we had whatever was happening locally or whatever was in print or in press. So it just was such an insular experience in childhood and, playing I remember playing wiffle ball in the cul-de-sac, riding bikes down the hill and
Hell yeah.
playing in the creek. Like that seems like an eon ago as far as the sophistication of us as people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's cool to hear. I also remember my tape wasn't that album. My tape was the Eminem album and
Yeah.
totally different from what I grew up with. And just being like, what music is totally different than I ever expected was a big turning point in me exploring music. And I think we all kind of have that moment. I'm curious about this because you mentioned just how sports came from living through dad. Your history with dad is complex. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So dad was murdered.
Yeah.
And
Biological father was murdered. Yeah.
biological father was murdered. And over the course of years, like there was a lot of different experiences probably leading up to kind of retribution of that. Can you tell me a little bit more about the story? I've read about it, but it was fascinating what you did.
Yeah. It's pretty wild, man. I mean, a lot of things that have happened in my life are examples of sort of, like reactionary, uh, uh, um, how I reacted, I guess, this thing happened and how did I react? And I reacted this way and I followed my nose and then that happened, you know, yeah, I didn't grow up with my biological father. I was raised by, another dad and, that dad, um, raised me in the best way he knew how. And he was a good dad, I was adopted when I was 9 months old, and the family that adopted me and raised me was just night and day compared to like where I came from. And of course, at that time, at 9 months old, I had no core memory of my mother, or my other family. So, when I became cognitive and aware of myself, my life was as it was. This is my family and this is who I am and this is where I live and these are my siblings who are also adopted. And, but I didn't grow up, thinking to myself, I didn't hear it every day, like you're adopted, it was just like, this is your brother, this is your mom. And so the question of like, well, why do I look different didn't really start to, go around in my brain until, probably like 11 or 12. And I think that when I was somewhere in that age, maybe a little younger, I remember asking my mom why I looked darker than everybody at school. And she was like, well, that's because God left you in the oven too long. Which is true. Everybody likes a burnt cookie.
That's totally a mom joke. Like there's
Totally,
dad humor.
totally.
That's a mom joke.
Hell yeah. And my dad connected with us as much as he could on his things that he liked, sports and music. To the conservative level, that he was in his own like responsibility to himself and to his beliefs. He lived that, and I grew to resent him. And as my balls dropped, and as I like started to think for myself, and I started to push back against the teachings, and so we really butted heads there, into the teenage years. And to his credit, like he did so much for me, put a roof over my head, really cared for me as his son, as I was, and he really instilled, these important values that I still hold on to today, as far as like, how a man should treat a woman, and how he should treat his children, and on the other hand, how he should not. And there's plenty of lessons in there. But I think when I left home when I was 17, and I was really grappling with where I came from, who I was, who these people that raised me are to me, and I had a really hard time. Seeing them in a good way, because as I was opening up to the world and leaving home and seeing what was going on out there and discovering things for myself, I couldn't help but look at them and think, wow, you guys literally are you're this pocket of America that seems to be so troubled, and I have a really big issue with it. And I hadn't learned empathy really at that age. I hadn't learned to be compassionate, and I just hadn't had enough tarmac behind me to understand how to hold space for everybody's experience, and to love them for who they are, for what they've done, and for what they, and for them to be changing, etc. So that being said, I held at that young age, because I left when I was 17, and then I met my birth mother when I was 20, and then a few years later, well, I was introduced to my birth father's family, and at that point he'd already passed, because he passed in 1984 when I was 8 years old. So when I met his family, it was challenging. It was a challenging time from 20 to 24, the years that I met my birth mother and family and birth father's family. Just mentally just very confusing, identity wise. Yeah, just trying to figure out who I was in the midst of all these different families, and being the only child between the two parents, and trying to maintain some form of civility with my adopted parents during this time of discovery. And I did a lot of things the way that I wouldn't do now. And it was remarkable to meet my uncle, and the first thing him saying to me was like, "You look just like your dad." And I was pissed because I had been told that my dad had been a dickhead, basically. I'd only heard one side of the story. And the one side of the story that seemed to have major impact on me because it impacted my mother and my entire family, you know, because of her trauma. So knowing that my dad was, you know, knowing what I knew about him to meet his family, I kind of went in with hackles up, right? I kind of went in like, who the fuck are these people? You know, you were complicit in my mother's pain. You know, you must have known, you know. And of course, as I dug deeper, I found out more and more and realized that my dad's actions were his own, you know, and that they weren't were complacent within those actions that he had chosen to do with his life and how to inflict pain on other people. And to be the result of that was just really confusing, right? And I think that I grew to really love and adore my dad's family. And I kind of went away from everybody for a little while there after I met everybody. Kind of went and just my music career was in transition. I was still living in Hawaii and thought I was going to be a farmer and was
different.
Yeah, very different life. I had fallen in love with the Big Island of Hawaii, and I'd been there since I'd been 19, and lived there for 7 years. And you know, music was always something I did, but it was on the side, kind of. You know, I was like, I still had to work. I had the construction, landscaping, you know, washing dishes, you know, waiting tables, whatever it was, and you know, I had no formal training in terms of songwriting or touring, so none of those things ever came into my mind. I was like, yeah, I got to work to do, and then I'm going to play the open mics and play on the street and stuff, you know, because that was the vibe. But a few years after I met my dad's family, my uncle had called me up and had said, you know, the guy that murdered your dad is going off for parole this year, and do you want to go visit him, or do you want to go? Sorry, not go visit him. Jesus Christ. Do you want to go to the court date and, you know, be a part of this family experience where we advocate for him to be put back in prison? And I was like, this sounds crazy. Let's go.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh shit. Like, obviously, like, you know, I carried my mom's anger with me because that's, you know, what I viewed him as. I had, you know, when I met my siblings, they had a different story about him, you know. My uncle
about dad.
Yeah.
About dad.
Yeah. So I was holding a version of the story that from my mother, right? And carrying her pain with me and her anger and no, you know, had no closure. And like when she found out from me that he had died. Yeah. And so when I hear the stories of my siblings, you know, like just my brain had to shuffle, right? Because I didn't want to project upon them my mom's experience, me being somebody in the middle of all this. Like, I didn't know the dude, you know, I'm his seed, right? Like, okay, you know,
yeah. Now you don't have a way to find out,
right? And now he's dead. There's no way I can go, like, you know, find closure for my mom's side of the family, you know, this and that. It's just, it was complex, right? It's complex. So, you know, to get the opportunity to go, to the hearing, what was something just was like, this is nuts. Like, hell yeah, I'll be there. Right. And it took me a couple weeks, but I kept thinking over the couple weeks, I was like, what the fuck this dude that killed my dad, like, this sounds just crazy. It's fucked up, you know, like, murder's not good. It's bad. but like, I had been going through this whole experience in my head, you know, long before I had a therapist, that a process in my head that was like kind of a process of elimination. It was like, cool. Dad, grew up in a certain way, had problems, brought those problems across the ocean, did more bad things, ended up being to my mom. I was born. Uh, that's not my story. Am I actually mad at this dude for killing him? Like, no, I mean, it caused pain in the rest of that family, but, I never knew him like that. So, um, there was this unusual, like, mental process of forgiveness that I was going through. And I think that, uh, over the couple of weeks that I had prior to, going to this court hearing, I had kind of worked it out in my head that, I had already like let it go. It was something that I didn't want to hold on to. And I had been experiencing other things in my life with my mom and my adoptive family and my personal and my other relationships in my life, where forgiveness was such a big topic, and letting go and being the bigger person or, these different topics that I was pretty, green at. And so, this idea just came into my head. I was like, oh, I should try and go meet this dude. And I'd never really, I'd never been to a prison before, let alone like, a prison, like fucking
You're in it.
yeah, like San Quentin, you know what I mean? Like that's a prison, yeah, I mean, there's other things that were going on that were pretty mystical at the time that, just a long story, but there's other pretty wild, auspicious things that were pointing me towards this wild experience that I went on to go find this dude, and happened to get into the prison, with no visitation scheduled, which is against the law. And then actually later in the court hearing, the attorney for, the murderer, like brought this to the court and was like, shame on your prison because they totally let the, this dude that killed this dude's family, like he made it into the prison. Like that could have been a mad liability.
Yeah. Yeah. If you had different intentions. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I slipped through the cracks, and I managed to meet up with this dude, and we both had an incredible 3-hour conversation. And we had our chins up at first, right? Like we didn't know who each other's was really, and I just broke it down for him why I was there and who I was. And he cried, I cried, like we held hands and shit. It was intimate and it was, deep, and unexpected for both of us.
It's fucking beautiful.
So, yeah, dude. And then it was like what happened afterwards was even crazier because like, I called my dad's family and I was like, this is what I did. It wasn't for you. It was for me. I was guided by my dad the whole time. I knew that he wanted me to go do this thing for him and for me. And so I wouldn't have to carry it, and, part of my family was just bewildered and curious. And, another part of my family was, it was just, was livid and upset. And then I didn't end up actually going to the court hearing. But sometime later, my auntie called me and told me that my siblings were, so inspired by what I'd done that they ended up doing something even more inspiring, which was to pardon him.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And he was released 20 years to the day that he killed our dad, and deported back to the Philippines, which was a miracle in and of itself, because when I was talking to him, he was like, yo, if I ever get out of here, like, I want to go back to the Philippines and make things right with my dad because I shamed my family all these years. And, he'd only been in America for 3 years when he murdered my dad. And so his family never visited him. I was the first visitor he had in 20 years. And
holy shit.
That wasn't like an attorney or something like that. And, he made it very clear. He's like, I know I'm never going to get out of here. but if I do, I want to go back and make things right with my dad. And so I hope he did. I don't know, but I hope he did.
Dude, that story is way beyond what I expected to hear. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And look, I know some of the details because of what I can find and read and learn about you. But for anybody curious, check out the song San Quentin. That's inspired. What inspired that song, that story? But what that invokes in me is that you were how old? 19, 20?
Oh no, I was like 24.
24? Still
24,
really
26,
young.
something like that. Yeah.
Still really young. And I can appreciate the like, I would probably do it different now, but that's how we learn. But more than that, to have the wherewithal to make a confrontation, right? That story sounds to me like a long line of confrontations. Let's find truth. Let's find truth. Let's find truth. And to do that, you have to have a lot of courage or a lot of ignorance, maybe a little bit of both to walk into the lion's den, right? Like, I mean, you're going in there not knowing what to expect, and then you have to rebuild your story. I'd love to know how you go about reframing these things as you're getting more information, because it's probably true today that you still do this, but that probably was an early part of like, you're rebuilding who you are, you're rebuilding how you see the world, how you see events.
I just thought of something that I think is helpful in this context, because I'm remembering when I started doing this. Have you ever been in a position where like you dated somebody, right? And they became your whole world, for like the week that you dated when you were young, right? Because everything was like fast and shit when you were little, right? Like the weekend that you guys were like together.
Those 6 hours were amazing.
Yeah. We were together. What? You said you loved me. And, you take heartbreak so hard, and that really doesn't change, you just find different ways of coping and accepting and moving on. And, you get more experience in the game. But, I was just thinking about how, when I look back at like my dating life over the last 20 years, like, and in the years prior, during, and just after this experience with my dad and my dad's family, my family, I remember like putting myself in these situations where like, break up with the girl and she'd start dating somebody new. And I was so adamant about staying friends because, that's how we started. And I would put myself in these, what most people would consider very uncomfortable situations where like I remain friends with their parents, like their mom or their dad or both in some circumstances. And like I get invited to family functions and like, go on hikes or like go camping with them and their new boo. And my intention was always to like remain the cool friend. And, I think that in doing that, like, of course, there's lots of nuance to these stories and these different experiences, but like, I remember thinking about that in doing that, like I really trained myself to, put myself in uncomfortable situations and, still, remain, like honorable within them. Now that didn't always happen, but, for the most part, I can look back on a lot of those experiences and go like, God, that was a lot. Like, why you didn't have to do that, but then I think I go like, yeah, but I was teaching myself to be cool about it, to actually accept that we've transitioned from, being intimate, but the love's still there. And I love that you are being loved, and I love that someone else loves you. And I love that I can love that for you, and I can still hold my own value and worth, in this experience. And in that, creating real family, I guess, in a sense. So, yeah, that's just one thing I was thinking about it in terms of your question about that. So I don't know. It just became a habit. I kept doing it. And then, it's the same feeling when you put yourself on stage, you keep doing it, we're good, right?
My experience of those uncomfortable situations and the connection to stage is surely different. And I very much align with the idea that it's a conditioning. It's like, it's an experience that you have that maybe it gets easier. I don't think it gets easier, actually. Continuing to put yourself out there at bigger and bigger levels doesn't really change the discomfort of it. You just are accustomed to the discomfort.
Exactly. You get accustomed to being uncomfortable.
Yeah. And the beautiful part of that expression is that for many of us, we can hide it. We can just be like, well, I remember that uncomfortable moment and no one else remembers it. For you though, it's permanent. Like it's tattooed in Spotify history.
On your record. Yeah.
Yeah. It's out and it's commemoralized in some ways. And I'm curious if that ever forces you to have to look back and process differently than I might, right? That my old laundry to some extent is out there. You can check my history and Google and do all that shit, but not the same way music does that.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your question now?
I guess, how do you have to reconcile differently because it is more permanent? Or do you just let it go?
Reconcile
the person you were, the music you created, the pain you caused it, like, because it's more permanent, is it a process?
Like in terms of like the fact that the song is always there and always reminding me of, yeah. I mean, again, there's each song, its own story, multiple stories, in fact, usually. I don't know how I ended up kind of doing this, but I guess like over time, the origin story of the song, depending on the song, may or may not become the main focus when I'm singing it or when I'm hearing it. Instead, it becomes a really visceral reminder of how life is still life can be so what's the word I'm looking for? It could be it goes in these like cyclical patterns, and even though I may not be experiencing the exact thing that I did when I listened to that song, I can listen to it still and go like, God damn, like that is very true. And I can relate to that, young man, to what I'm experiencing right now. It's wild.
Like I think of that in a three-dimensional way to my own story, where if I'm revisiting the same point in the circle, I'm hoping that I've elevated and now the spiral up.
Sure.
The circumstances are different, or my experience is a bit more refined. And in all that, music has always been a place where I can say, I can listen to a song and tell you exactly what I was doing that time in my life based on the chronology of the song when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of gives me a place to come back home to music and expression and laughter and play and the person I was dating, or like summertime and what city I was in. And to just to hear you say that sounds like you're able to do that for your own music, which is really fucking cool, with your own art. To have something permanent to catalog your own growth. I think in my world, that's been business. And I can say, in this year, I remember going through fucking COVID. Oh my God. Like, I will never forget what was happening in business during COVID. I will never forget what happened in business when I moved to Arizona. And so I think we all kind of have our history, but it is really special to have a full documentation of all your stories embodied into these things. One of the more precious moments I had in this musical journey of mine, a good buddy of mine is a musician, and I was listening to one of his songs, and like all of us do, I was like, oh my God, this song is about me. It's telling my pain. He's telling my pain with his fingers. And I had this, it was the first time I'd ever experienced this. I was in the car and I was like, oh shit, this song isn't about me. This is him describing his pain, and I'm not paying attention to his pain, because we were really close friends. And I think that was the first time I ever understood that I wasn't listening to someone telling a story that I could resonate with. It was someone telling their story that I was refusing to resonate with. Almost that I wasn't paying attention to the artist speaking. I just wanted to connect with the words. And, as I listen to your music, like you've put a lot of your heart, your pain, your wisdom, your lessons out there. And to transmute that, like, I would just love to know a little bit about how you process some of these really deep things. Like, what do you do to be able to put such poetry to pain?
I guess just experience life, right? There's a chain of events that happens, right? You live life, things happen. You find yourself with your guitar, your piano, right? And I mean, it's my experience, and then you just write the story out, find the melody, find the chord progressions, and it's a weird thing to put words to. Many people have tried. Many people have tried. They're saying, everyone's saying they're doing it. It's probably one of those craziest things they've ever done in their life. Okay. Anyways, it's bizarre. The accepting that human beings will adopt the story for themselves and therefore forget that you are the person writing it has been probably the bane of my existence and one of the hardest things to accept, especially because of when you look at the inner workings of a lot of the communities that adopted my music, the putting somebody on a pedestal, giving these, naming things that weren't me, and all because they were listening to something and thinking to themselves, this is my story. This is so true. This is what I feel like. And that must also be who you are and what you are like. And,
in totality, like all the time.
In totality, all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think I really struggle with that because, just an artist, and certainly not perfect. And, a lot of the time, yes, I'm saying these things and yes, I believe in them, but is it necessarily true for me right now? No, not always.
Yeah.
I'm still striving to get there. In fact, I hear people all the time say like, Nahko, he claims to be this spiritual person and this like, whatever. And I'm like, nah, I never said that I was that. You should go back and actually listen to what I was saying. And then it's funny because I hear that and I go like, oh, you got sucked into what people were saying too. And how quickly, your idea of somebody, can be the group thought.
For sure. Did you ever struggle to not fall in like the river of what everyone is saying about you and making that who you are? I think it's 100%. Really easy to
I totally did that shit. I was like, well, I can't change it. Might as well write it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was too much to change. I certainly pushed back in my own way, and adopted, not so attractive habits and, reactionary,
like tendencies, maybe?
Yeah, like patterns that were in defense of my own self. Like I didn't want to be this like spiritual guru, yogi, fucking whatever the fuck, that was being painted about me. And so I really leaned into that rude boy part of me that was like, all right, well then I'm going to cuss some more. I'm going to roll in with my shirt off and, with a bottle of whiskey and talk shit because you guys are fucking retarded. Sorry, can't say it anymore.
Right.
And it wasn't even directed at anybody in particular.
It's just a swell.
It was
of noise.
just this I didn't know what to do with all this attention all of a sudden. Especially considering I couldn't control the narrative around it, And everywhere I turned, it was oh, and I was like, all right, I guess, all right, fuck it, And again, there was no training given for that when you are a young musician and your music's taken off. And granted, of course, the context of which I was talking about, lent the listener. And there was so much time in between that I couldn't, for myself at that time in my life, I couldn't see individuals. I just saw an idea just as much as they saw an idea, not an individual. Pretty wild.
It is pretty wild. I haven't had the same kind of experience, but I think that experience speaks to so many where we are more pulled away from our identity by our peers. And then we have two of us. And it can happen in a variety of contexts to have a version of us that is the mask, that is, this is who the world needs me to be, to perform, to show up, to win, to dominate. And then there's this other version of me that's typically soft and gentle and authentic and has had to put on a layer of armor to stay intact. I think my stage version of Aaron and my version of Aaron the authentic, has slowly been working its way back together. But dude, I can remember times where if you put a camera on me, it was go mode. And it didn't matter what kind of camera it was. It could be a stupid Polaroid, we got to shake it and do the Outcast thing. But, it just, I have found myself seeing it more as I coach, more as I help high level individuals who have almost built these two avatars in the public domain and in the private domain. They've remained so distant. And I feel like my biggest challenge has been going back to when I was a kid and to not be picked on. I had to be a chameleon. It was the only way for me to stay safe, was to blend in. So I learned how to blend in. And then I could blend in anywhere. And then I'm like, well, who the fuck am I if I'm always the same color as the tree or the environment that I'm in? If everyone's an artist, I'll be an artist. If everyone's an entrepreneur, I'll be an entrepreneur. If I'm always blending in, who am I? And that question has scary ramifications because it ends up being a huge rabbit hole. When you're going through your changes, when you're going through your identity shifts, when you're reconciling with what everyone is saying and then looking at the internal version of you, how do you make sure that you're steering the right direction? How do you know that you're evolving the way that you want to evolve versus just listening to everybody else and following suit?
You don't. You just got to take the risk. I think that if you're really listening, or if you're trying to listen to your intuition and your gut, that's still not a confirmation that you're going to go the right way. Nobody knows the right way. You can only try it out, and at which point you'll discover if it was right or if it wasn't. And I think that I've done that a lot in my life. And I continue to try. And I think that that's the most admirable part that you can do, is try, just try it, and then try to enjoy the ride, regardless if it's, where you wanted to end up or get to. Um, enjoy the mistake if it ends up being a mistake. Find the lesson in it. You know, feel the feelings around it and grow the fuck up.
I like that.
Try again.
Yeah. Try is a word that I don't think we use often enough as adults. I think there's like a stigma around trying. So I really appreciate that. When impact is a big part of your ethos, like who you are, how do you also be selfish enough to work on you and mindful enough to consider others?
I think as adults, you know, and especially as parents, you have to figure out how to do both all the time. You got to be taking care of you and everybody else, you know, and that's just life experience and learning how to balance things, you know. I don't think anybody gets it right all the time. You know, it's a constant tug of war between your own self-care and the responsibilities that you may or may not have to other people. The talking as an artist, self-care has a lot to do with your art and your responsibility to it. You have a responsibility to your audience, those that support the art, and there's a cyclical, you know, beneficial relationship that you have between all those things. And so it takes some TLC, some intentional TLC, and it's a constant work in progress. But again, I guess like a lot of that just comes to experience with actively working on finding balance in your life and not overdoing one thing or the other. And it's tough. It's tough when, you know, you give yourself your own, you know, your own, what's it called? Like you're your own boss in that regard, right? Like you have to give yourself deadlines and you have to give yourself scores, you know, and decide, if you're really, doing well in those fields, like a quarterly report of your own shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those reflections.
You gotta look at your own analytics and like to decide if real change is happening and if you're really adopting those new ways of scaling your own success of, you know, balance between all your responsibilities to self and to others and to family and to art and work and all the things that you adopt to.
What's the confrontation? Since we brought that up a couple times, what's the confrontation like when you're not living up to the person that you want to be? Like, what do you do to navigate both the realities of that and not be so self-critical that you don't get back up tomorrow?
I was just thinking about how I go and work out most of the time. I get real frustrated with myself and I have to sort of like find that, you know, that physical outlet to work through the hiccup, you know, however large. And because yeah, you can get hella critical, you know, it's like every day. But um, there's the physical aspect of like pushing the body to move through the emotion. And then there's, you know, the stillness of like walking in the garden and picking things up and like weeding the garden like I did for a couple hours yesterday. Building things, you know, spending quality time with your kids, like, you know, teaching them things, you know, and the health and wellness of just stillness versus busyness, you know. A lot of those factor into how I process.
And I have had a long, hard history with stillness. Working out, always a good, safe place. I had a friend one time say, it's like you look for pain because pain has been a motivator for you. And at the time, I think it was when art has a lot of pain, when music has a lot of pain as a connective tissue, how do you make sure you don't just like put yourself back in pain? Like it seems like you would just look for it all the time. And what you look for is going to expand. How do you make sure that the other half of the coin, the other piece of the equation is also being fed?
I mean, pain's always going to be there. It's just part of life. You can try and navigate away from it the best you can. And that's the best you can do. You have to you can't let pain, decide for you how you're going to live your life. Expect there to be pain because there's going to be. And it's really just about, in my opinion, it's about learning how to live with pain and how to manage its impact. If you live life thinking that you can avoid pain, and then you're just going to make your life harder. It's there. Learn to live with it. Every experience that becomes painful or has pain or, built in, is an opportunity for you to, find, something to ease that pain. It gives you great experience in being, the captain, and, on the captain's team, it's just gonna hurt. It's just gonna hurt, man. Just learn how to navigate the pain and, what kind of balms can be helpful to lessen it. And then just, don't live life thinking that it's not gonna hurt. Life hurts. Life's tough. Get a helmet.
That's why we play soccer. To me, the opposite of pain, I used to think that the opposite of pain was like joy. And I think now, given my work and who I'm becoming and being a new dad, I think that the opposite of pain is actually vision. It's, can you see something bright? Can you see something that is clear that you can work towards, that gives pain context, that doesn't allow pain to be like an overwhelming experience? It's just part of the ride. And when I think of artistry, what I think of first is can see something that others can't, can taste and feel and describe something that others can't. Clearly, you've had some kind of vision in your life of what this could be and how it could keep evolving, or you wouldn't keep evolving. Like, how do you make sure your vision continues to grow? What practices have you created for yourself as an artist that allow you to think differently and say that the next level looks totally different than it does, and allow yourself to keep expanding while you're shedding underneath you?
I think one of them is continuing to put myself in positions where I'm uncomfortable. Whether that's talking on a podcast or, trying out new ways of writing music and new ways of recording music. Remind me of the question again, because I'm getting too deep in thought about my answer.
How do you keep evolving your vision? What practices do you do to make sure you're like plugged into it and it continues to grow beyond what you know now?
I think that a part of it is not having much of a vision in general. Just simply living on a simple basis of make music, grow food, feed your mind and your body in a good way, be honest, have clean and clear relationships in your life, be in the practice of transparency and healthy communication with all people in your life, be a good example and treat people with love and respect. And at that point, good things happen. At one point in the last 5 years, I thought maybe my lack of vision in the 10, 15 years prior to that brought me to a place in my life that was, what at that time I could think of was unwanted or undesired. And I thought maybe I wasn't thinking clearly enough. And, in many cases I wasn't. But if I don't, subscribe to, in my industry, if I don't subscribe to a vision that most people might have in terms of accolades, then I'm not going to get disappointed. If I subscribe to just being happy, through this process of artistry and entertainment, and and on the human level of being a parent, and being a young person, and being a person in business, and being a person in land stewardship. If I don't, if I just, if I accept those things and allow those things to naturally grow, the vision will develop, or rather, however short term or long term, right? And I look at that and go, like, long term vision, yeah, continue to evolve into a honest and communicable and grounded, truthful, well-rounded, and still complex person, and, you don't have to have some, short-term or long-term vision for, where you want to see things go, as long as these sort of basics, remain nurtured and fed, then whatever comes is going to be extra greatness. So, yeah, I don't know if I don't really have I don't have some, big vision that I'm like hoping to continue to, feed outside of these basics that I feel like I didn't have years ago. I didn't have that concept of grow in your nest and then fly. It was like, I don't have a nest. I'm just trying to fly. And I have no idea what I'm doing out here, and I think that, I think that I learned a lot about, cultivating the garden, on the home front. And, when you get to go out and share yourself with the world, you are still that same person, even when you put your game face on now, all those old, natural nuances of your character and all the people that you are come out, right? Because you are an entertainer, you're good at that shit. And you're good at inclusivity within the entertainment aspect of it, where you can bring, as a magnet who you are, you can bring these people to your awareness and guide them through something, and just be naturally yourself. And by just being your natural self without all the baggage, right, of your younger self that was sort of like confused and unsure and insecure and projecting, you can just do your thing, and what that is now, and then things can grow, and a vision can perhaps unfold that you may not have thought you were working towards before. ...
Dude, yeah, that is a super ellipsis. Absolutely. Yeah, like what I hear in that is almost you went through enough turbulence to say, like, this is the process. Here's how I stay grounded. Here's how I get to here's how I know myself well enough to know that if I adhere to these principles, like, then I can show up and operate. I can show up and execute. I can show up and be. Something I struggle with is just being. Like, there's a whole narrative in my mind about what I can and can't do, or should and shouldn't do. Being and just existing comes with all these complications of I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, and I got to do it so that you or anyone else can attest to what I'm not currently able to offer myself. So I really love the tenets there, the truth, honesty, like those entire, that sequence says to me, you figured out how to build a process. And by that process, anything you get also comes in a way that matches your frequency, your vibe, your values, which is fucking awesome, man.
Yeah. When you're in your integrity, the vision will reveal itself, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm in it already. Let's go.
Pay attention to that, folks at home. That's important. So here's something I want to know. When you've been playing music as long as you have been, and foreseeably will, like you don't have it every day. There's not always a day that you're like perfect or that you feel great, that you're not battling illness. Like I think on the outside, the same thing is true with athletes, where we just assume that mentally, emotionally, that their lives are so like sterile that they never experience hardship, and that when they're on stage or performing or playing, that everything is great. And we know that not to be true. When you're going through hard stuff, when you're walking out on stage and you can just flip it on, like what goes through your mind? Are you just able to segregate and compartmentalize really well? Are you able to say like, hey, this is something bigger than me? What gets you from that state of like, I've got my own shit to deal with, to it's time for me to perform for others?
I have found more often than not that just being real with your audience is your way in and through it. When I'm going through shit, there is a part of me, sure, that as an entertainer, I'm still, I'm putting on the riz, you know what I mean? I'm still gonna, get up there and do my job. However, I'm also gonna bring it with me because that's just how I am. So, I'm going to allow the music to do its thing on me too. My own actual performance is part of me working through whatever I'm going through. So if I'm feeling a certain way when I'm up there, there are songs and there are ways that I, with my body language or with how I'm telling the story, that is, my process of releasing, accepting, and moving through the pain and the hardship itself. I mean, I let my own music be medicine for me, right? And on the other hand, I'm often, especially when I'm playing by myself, and not like, when you're with your band, you're like, it's like a whole, and when I'm playing solo, I have a lot more opportunity to just be transparent and talk story and be open about what's currently going on for me outside of this performance and these songs I'm singing for y'all. So I'll often just speak to, whether I'm sick or if like I had a hard day, or, I just bring it into the realness in real time. Because, I know that going to see shows, there's a camaraderie there as human beings that we often experience, and it really breaks down that barrier between the stage and the audience. You get that moment of like, oh well, yeah, that person's human too, and yes, they're breaking out of that entertainment jacket, right? And they're revealing themselves in this vulnerable way, which is, and in my opinion, the sign of a great artist is somebody who can break that third wall or that fourth wall, whatever it is.
Yes, dude, I was just going to say that because I saw Deadpool recently, and Ryan Reynolds does it so great, right?
Amazing, yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but
no spoilers.
Big fan, and one of my favorite parts about him is that he really brings you in to his moment, and it's all very unusually like real, and you can't help but see him.
Yes. Yeah. I like the idea of dismantling the like robotics that are being an entertainer and the dehumanization of being an entertainer. So cool. And even having this conversation here is that experience for me.
Yeah, I was playing a show recently in Australia, and
I heard it was your biggest yet, or biggest over there yet.
So in the last 5 years, yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. And some girl yelled from the crowd, "Take your shirt off!" And I paused for a moment. I was like, I just want to say something about that because I said, I'm gonna tell you. Oh, I said no. I said no, and I was like, I'm cold. And she's like, why or whatever. And then I paused and I was like, um, I'll explain something to you, that perhaps you can understand as a woman. And I said, as a man, when I was younger, I used to take my shirt off all the time because it was all, I said, first of all, I started taking my shirt off in the beginning because, a lot of the time where I was playing, it was hot as fuck. And it was in Hawaii, and that's just how you rolled. You were in your slippers, in your board shorts, no shirt, and your jamming guitar. That was just the vibe, right? So I just attached that to touring when I started touring. And then it was like a thing. And then, it became an ego thing too. Cause I was like, hell yeah, look at me. I look good. What's up, ladies? You see me? Okay. And then I started covering up because I started getting insecure about being objectified and sexualized. And most people, most dudes don't talk about this in the music industry, in my opinion, because we work through it in our own way. And a lot of the time, the conversation is specifically directed towards the benefits of that. And I have great experience now understanding the negative effects of that. And so, part of that is putting on the costume for sure, but also, wanting the focus to be less about my body, what I look like, and more so about what I've come there to do, which is to perform for you and to sing for you and to let's focus on the music, you know what I mean?
Wow. I don't know that I've ever, I don't think that's talked about, nor would I have ever assumed that you would respond in the moment. Like, that's so cool to just make it very real.
Yeah, I was just like, yo, this is how it is though. And she was like, oh, that makes sense. I was like, yeah, cool.
Okay, cool. Good job.
Sometimes you just gotta roll with those conversations when they're happening because it's like every moment's a potential teachable moment,
Yes.
Even for yourself.
Oh man, I had a conference that I ran. When was this? Maybe 2 months ago. Holy shit! It feels like a year ago. And one of the entire theme was about influence, and the idea of influence not being like, I'm going to sell you Gymshark t-shirts, but can I impress upon you that you're capable of more? Can I influence us to collaborate together? Can we create something that ripples beyond us? And really, really cool moment happened where this guy was like, dude, he like stood up in the middle of this and was like, I don't trust you. I just don't trust bearded white men.
Oh,
and
God.
It was like, okay, we're going in. And it turned into a wonderful discussion about how this word influence had such powerful like spacing between what it was intended to be and what it wasn't. And we ended up navigating really well, but the whole, of 100 people in the room got to sort of be a part of this. And I agree with you that there sometimes you can't invent those moments. You can't find, there's no like script for that. You just have to kind of improv it. And in the entertainment industry, it sounds like you have found a way to do that is also homogenous with your music. It's also like it's blended into the musical experience, which just sounds fucking awesome, man. It really does.
Thank you.
Here's a question that I've been dying to ask. And I'll give you a little context and then I'll ask the question. In entrepreneurship, when you go into business for the first time, when you're vibrant and jubilant about what entrepreneurship is, and then later get subsequently kicked in the teeth. You go in and you have to wear like all the hats. You have to figure out so much about business, and like you're buying business cards and you're building your own website. You're trying to build a product. You're trying to sell. So you just wear all the hats. You just look like the cat in the hat with as many hats as you have on. And what I find fascinating about music is that I know there's a business side, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but from the musical side, it's just impossible to do that. You kind of pick a lane and you're like, this is what I'm doing. Give me the mic, give me the front of stage. I'm not doing drums. I'm not doing piano. I can't do all of that at the same time. And in some ways, like you kind of learn your lane of genius, I think, in music from the outside looking in earlier, because you can't play them all at the same time. You have to have a band. You have to have these things. But then you jump into the business side, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, like you're not just a musician anymore. You are a business owner. You're an entrepreneur. When you transitioned into business, did you have the same mentality of like, I'm just going to do what I do and I'm going to hire out the rest. I'm going to build a team to do the rest? Or did you also fall prey to the like, I'm going to wear all the hats and do it myself?
Great question. When I started, being the quadruple Aquarius that I am, I was like automatic, was doing it all from the beginning. So, from writing the music to setting up the, places to perform at, to making the tour posters, to making the tour art, to taking the photographs, to, writing the music videos, to filming, directing, like, at a very young age. I mean, I got my first camcorder when I was like 15 years old and started making films with my brother. And then like, finding places to make stickers and like screen printing my own t-shirts and getting, Goodwill shirts and screen printing them and shit. And doing all, of those things. And, then, it started to grow, and, it got to a point where, I couldn't manage it on my own, and we were looking for help. And then things got real, right? Because we took on some help, and they put us in the wheel, and we worked our butts off for many years. The business, and then we were in the business. You know what I mean? Like before that, it was like grassroots. I kept all the money in a shoebox kind of vibe, right? Burning CDs. How many thousands of dollars I spent on jewel cases, and like, how many times, you'd literally be in the back of the van, like, burning CDs, and sharpening them, didn't even bother putting the sticker on them,
I love it.
And utilizing that, and then so when we went into like massive production, and hit the road with like a team behind us, that was a totally different experience where I had to learn how to relinquish the control, and trust other people with my shit, which was hard. And, God bless my first managers. They really stuck it out with me, at a time in my life I was really having a hard time trusting people, as well as, had zero understanding of how, the business worked at that level. And so, as I got older and as the years passed and we went through different, teams, it was tricky, because again, there's no formal training for this, being an independent artist. There was no training in terms of like short-term and long-term goals where, I knew how the business worked in a very small window of understanding, and then was deferring to like other people for advice. And oftentimes that advice would be coming from people who weren't actually like managers or agents, right, or, labels or whatever. It would be coming from other people in the music industry, but as well as like elders and like, in my world, at least, like, mentors that honestly didn't know a lot about the music industry itself, but spoke specifically to, intuition, impact, and, uh, uh, and what's the goal here, you know? And I think that, to the credit of a lot of my first teams, specifically the one label that I've worked with my entire career, an indie label out of LA, um, you know, my, my, um, my passion for remaining independent throughout this whole experience, really came through with the deals we were able to make. Which is why even today, like I'm sitting in a good place in terms of, owning the rights to, my catalog and to my publishing, et cetera. So, that being said, like, life changed, massive, disinformation campaign, taking down my career in some capacity, in 5 years now, having built it back up in some capacity as well. And now it's like I went back to the beginning in a lot of ways of where I'm wearing all the hats again, and I feel like I went to school in this period of life, from like pandemic to post pandemic, where I was like, got the bootstraps back up, put on my big boy shorts, and I was like, all right, I've been here before. I know how to do this. It is a totally different world considering there is like years of, data and admat and like, contracts and, files and all this shit that like has to get, rehomed, reorganized. And, I'm like subscribing to YouTube University for a lot of things. And, and then, relinquishing control and allowing, a few people that I've got in my world now, who are mad assistants, in carrying a lot of that weight. Cause there is a lot of digital stuff that's like very complicated, and there's a lot of like things to keep tabs on. And it's in and of itself, that is an art form, so I often say these days that I have a day job, which is like managing my business at home, that I have to give a few hours to at least a day. And my kid recently said to me, I guess one of her friends came over and she was like, yeah, this is my dad and he has to work because we have to have a house.
What?
And I was like, that's right, girl.
So don't bother me.
Yeah. So
I'll be in the office.
I need you to go to your room and start thinking about what kind of job you're trying to do, because I need some help.
I like her. I'll just say that. She seems cool.
She's funny.
The journey of, I think, running a business is interesting too. The redefinition of COVID makes a lot of sense after all you've been through. With you having to learn all this again and rebuild it and do all that, there has to be like a deep commitment to like, this is me. I went through something in 2022 that was similar, where like I had to just commit back to like, this is who I am. It is what I do, but it's also who I am. What was that process like for you? Was it like, did you ever have a moment where you're like, I don't know, maybe I'll go like, I don't know.
Oh yeah. I had more than
one.
Of
enterprise.
Oh bro. Yeah. I mean, it was, it wasn't just a moment. It was a few years, of seriously questioning, whether or not, it was whether or not, I'm a big listener to the universe. And I was like, so what do you want me to do? Cause I don't know where to go from here. This is, I'm being very patient and I'm, following my nose. I am, I'm working on these things that I feel like I know that I'm supposed to be working on. But I don't see a light here at the end of the tunnel. I don't feel like I have any guidance in this regard. So should I get a job at the bar? Cause I've always wanted to be a bartender, and maybe I should get a job at the coffee shop. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And, deeply questioned for years, whether or not, it was within my, destiny to continue onward. And mind you, like I, of course, and I guess not of course, but I did think a lot about the fact that, hey, I'm never going to stop writing music. Like that's just something that I know is me. Writing music is just what I do. It's a hobby in as much as it is, a modality for me to process, and it is an art, right? It's a craft of mine that I thoroughly enjoy. But, am I going to continue to live perform, at any level, am I going to try to get out there and show up, for the fans in different cities around the world? Am I going to still try to travel to places I've never been to, that people are asking me to come to, right? Like, is that like what, this experience, is telling me to stop doing, and I doubted it hard, for a long time. And even in moments of success, in terms of getting back on stage, I still doubted it, and it's still a question mark in my mind of like, well, where does this go from here? Really? Especially considering, when you look at my career arc from, as I mentioned before, playing on the street, to coffee shops, to, traveling the world with the band, to, getting to this like, epic level 2018, 2019, and then things falling apart, and then, going through that, experience of, oh, I need to secure this nest and, really develop the internal organs here and revisit and reimagine. And then maybe I can fly again, but where do we go from here? No idea, but I'm open to, what is meant to happen, and I'll show up for it. And it's tough. It's tough. It's very tough showing up for the job all the time, especially when you are doubtful of, its direction, and you put in so much hard work for it, only to get batted down, and you're like, so what's the point again? And then of course all those other factors of life come in, of like financial stability, of, can you support your family? All the realistic, tidbits that are an entrepreneur was going to think about, is this sustainable? Okay, if this isn't the thing that's going to sustain me, then what is, so yeah, it's been tricky. And it has not been without its hiccups, massive bumps in the road. But I think that, I'm grateful for, the people and the, experiences I've had that have allowed me to persevere through, and to continue to show up and, be open to, what's next. We'll see.
One of those internal organs for me has been, as a reformed people pleaser, saying no. Like, bro, I used to say yes so fast that 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, 3 hours, 3 days, I'd be like, what did I just say yes to? Like, I'm not even sure what just happened. Has that become a bigger part of your vocabulary as you not only develop the internal organs, but also set in some priorities and honed in your tenets of like your process and got clear on what matters and what doesn't, it sounds like, in some extent too. Ha!
I mean, yes. I mean, no. Yes, it has actually. Like, I just was thinking of one example of, prioritizing, in a time where I could say yes, I prioritized saying no and saying yes to something else. Yeah, as an example, like I chose to take my summer off from, playing shows to spend time with my kid, and, looking at, a year in advance going like, all right, I'm going to section this off for this, and I'm going to do this over here for that. And I'm a really visual person, so I kind of have to like draw it out, you know what I mean? And then review it over and over again to really feel into whether or not that's really going to be the priority and the focus. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, when there's less noise, even, you know, when you're doing it yourself and you're wearing all the hats, you know, there's less noise in terms of like other people, you know, yapping at you about stuff. There's still people yapping about you, but like it's a different, you know, a bit of experience. And more often than not, at least in my experience, it's mostly me wearing a different hat, yapping at myself wearing a different hat, right? And like, like the dad, you know, and then talking to the agent, and then the manager talking to the artist, like it's always going on up in here. And I think it's objectively have to step back and speak to all those different hat wearers, and realign them when things start looking a bit messy, to get through the yes and the no of things, and find even sometimes just finding a neutral zone and a neutral space to be existing in.
I love that. One of the challenges that I see in that inner conflict, I've dealt with it. I think almost every one of our clients deals with it, is how do you make sure the artist has space to speak? Now, you in your profession and craft and your vocation, that's absolutely required. But I think in entrepreneurship, there's language and there's rhetoric and there's this expectation, somewhat peer driven, to like let the manager win and always let the manager win. And so the artist sort of slowly fades away and atrophies. And in my opinion, every entrepreneur that really has the gut and gumption to go for something like building a business, like they have an artist in them. So what advice would you give to an entrepreneur that like their manager is constantly winning the war against the artist and they want to bring that artist out, or they believe they can? How would you help them do that?
I mean, I would say that most managers are trying to, well, they have a lot to hold on, right? It's a big job, because there's all kinds of different artists. You know, you've got artists that don't want to do shit and, you know, want to be, you know, bottle fed their whole career. And then you got artists on the other spectrum that literally do everything and have the biggest visions, more so than their manager does, you know. And a really good manager is going to listen a lot more, you know, and is going to help direct you, but not push you in any way that doesn't seem fitting for you. A good manager is going to approach you with bigger visioned concepts, partnerships, opportunities, be your biggest cheerleader, you know. But it's like a glorified personal assistant, you know. It's not somebody who's managing you. It's somebody who's like caretaking your business, in as much as they are hoping and trying to build bridges for you, and then giving you the opportunity to cross that bridge if you so desire. And I would say that, I mean, I've talked to a lot of artists about this in the last few years, especially, you know, prior to COVID too, but I didn't know as much as I do now. So I would say that, you know, it can seem so daunting to, if you're just getting started, you know, it can seem so complex because it is, right? And my goal is always to simplify the things that are not so simple, to just grasp the concept of the vastness of this thing, of the constant changing of its internal workings, because the industry is changing all the time. But there are things that are true that remain the same, right? Like you're going to have to tour, you know, you're going to have to put content out. you're going to have to expose yourself in some way so that your audience can get to know you. And in this day and age, which is far different than when I started, because like when I started, YouTube had just come out, MySpace was just getting started, like Facebook was just getting started. You know what I mean? Like, this, idea of like, putting yourself out in the world through these different, social platforms was like just getting started. And now, you've got, the music industry itself has changed so much where you have these artists that like get famous on TikTok or, and then that drives them to their Spotify and they've got like millions of streams on their Spotify, but they can't even sell 200 tickets at an actual club.
Right.
Because they haven't been out. Yeah. They haven't been on the street. So they got no cred. So, and then you're talking about an audience that probably can't even afford to buy a ticket because they just got a summer job, you really have to study their demographic. You have to study like, all right, well, how am I going to get out on the road? Can I afford a tour? Can I afford a band? You got to start looking, oh shit, I have to do budgets. Like, oh my God, what the fuck's a budget? And then you look at, the whole misconception of like labels and like, getting signed and, the Rolodex, of potential, contact and partnerships that could come with being in a label. And then you've got, the countless stories and typical experiences people have of just being, they sell you their big package. And then once you're on the team, you're kind of like way down at the bottom and barely touched, and then you're in debt. It's like going to fucking college. Nobody tells you, that you're really just going to be living off of other people's money for a long time. And if you're going to take on this deal, and again, deals have changed so much, over the last 15 years, 20 years, like, and are consistently changing. And arguably, for independent artists, the accessibility and the, availability of, remaining independent is, really there these days. There's a lot of like distro deals and things like that are always indie leaning, towards the artist continuing to have and remaining, to have ownership over their music. So, but again, it's complex. And I would say that, one of my things that I wished I had seen when I was getting started was just simply YouTubing. How the fuck does this industry work? And there are really great YouTube videos describing like the trickle down effect of, how money breaks down in this industry. And, I highly recommend doing some Google searches on that if you're out there just getting started and wanting to try to understand how this thing works. And remember that even when you're looking at this particular video that's trying to explain to you how things break down, that's nuanced in and of itself. Like there are, absolutely, a million different experiences you could potentially have, once you start digging in, putting yourself out there, and trying stuff out. You may discover, somebody or an opportunity that, was never, outlined in your research, so, don't subscribe to like one particular, way of thinking around this, industry because, just like you, it's changing all the time.
I think all of that's true. And in business, there's a million ways to make $1 million kind of thing. Like, would you say that the X factor is like work? Is it belief? Is it worthiness and being able to command that presence? Is it just the craft and how proficient you are? Is it all of those things?
I would say it's all. I was just remembering making my first $1 million at the end of the year, and I was like, I looked at the sheets, and I was like, oh shit, we made $1 million this year, and I was like, oh, and then I looked at what we actually grossed, and then what I personally took home, which is like I think like 20 grand, which is still good, But
that's
like
great.
I was like, oh shit, like wow, a lot of that shit goes elsewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, like yes to all those things. What was the question again? Just remind me.
Like, what does it take to get to the place where you can separate out, you can elevate, you can make it something that you can do all the time?
A lot of hard work, a lot of consistent belief in yourself that what you have is valuable and that what you have is different. Um, it's tough because, there's a lot of people out there that have this belief in themselves, but what they've got is just not that good. It's not gonna, I mean, it's good. Let's say there's some of it's good, but then it's not gonna cut above and it's not unique enough. It's just not gonna push through the noise. And that's just something you gotta like accept. That doesn't mean you have to stop doing it, but maybe maybe you have to step back and readjust like your actual vision with it and go, well, maybe this is more than maybe this is more than just, maybe this is more of just a hobby, right? Maybe this is more something I do, with my community, and it doesn't have to be about, taking it on the road or like, some bigger vision with it. Maybe I can just refocus this and like, you know, start an open mic in my community, or like, maybe I want to start booking at a venue. Maybe I want to become a booker, or maybe and play and moonlight as a musician, right? Or like maybe I want to co-write with people, and maybe I want to be a music teacher, like there's so many ways that you can continue to stay in music without, if you end up coming to that point in your journey where you're like, all right, I'm not cutting above right now, and I'm putting way too much time and money into trying to be the cut above. There's many different experiences that we have in music, and not everyone's is the same. But some of those things we just discussed, like, will absolutely be a place that somebody has to get to and decide, what they want to do at that point.
Yeah, I feel that internally, the pain that comes from realizing that you're not a cut above is also, to me, and has been for me, the clue to figure it the fuck out. Like, if not, it's okay. Like, everyone was that. Listen to Ed Sheeran's first song. Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah. I mean, I still look at like what my expectation was versus like what I got.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
My expectation of like what I thought I was, like as good as I thought I was, like we never made it past like certain level. We, that's, a nuanced thing to say anyways. There's like, many ways to look at it. But what I'm thinking of in particular is like, I thought that my music was going to be good enough to reach mainstream audience, in a capacity that was different than where we got it at. Now, you could argue, and it's true, that the music did reach a mainstream audience, in many different facets, when you look at it outside like that. But when I was in it, pre-COVID, I was still trying to access a different audience. I wanted to expand. I was still trying to, see my music be on, television or streaming platforms of some, video kind, or like, TV film, trying to see it in, a different platform than it was, because I felt like we had that ability and the songs had the ability to reach a broader audience. That being said, what the work that it did do and where it did go was right where it needed to be. And more often than not, that's the case. You're going to have an idea about what you think it should be doing and where it should be going. And the lesson you got to learn there is like, you don't have control, fool.
I think that message was probably for me today.
There you go.
Man, well, just as we kind of wind down here, I'll share this with you. The particular words that have sung most to me is "I am enough." I think it's always been a challenge, and in business and in entrepreneurship, there's always this cascade of like, I've got to prove it, I've got to be it, I've got to show you it, I've got to earn it, I've got to build it, I've got to design it, and my work in the last really 3 years has been all around I'm enough, and can I believe that I'm worthy of what I want, worthy of the dream, worthy of the craft that I do, and that space of believing you're enough is easy to say, like, I believe that I'm enough. It's a totally different thing to feel. And as I cruise through not just your music and your expression that way, but also your history that I could find, it's very clear that you've done a lot of work on that. So I'd just love to know, like, if someone is listening and they don't feel like they're enough, where could they start?
Start by giving yourself a hug. Because you are enough, but you can always do better. And I think that it's never going to change this feeling. And so just learn to remind yourself of what you're worth. So it don't matter, however big or small the experience is when you have those thoughts. And sometimes we don't translate what is this feeling to this to this knowing of like, oh, this is because I don't feel like I'm enough. It's an insecurity. It's it's touching on my feelings of unworthiness or imposter syndrome or whatever it is, as a artist, a father, a lover, a partner, a husband, a wife, whatever it is, I'm saying, like all these things that, we are sensitive beings. We are, we're squishy, even if you look tough as fuck on the outside, you know what I mean? And so, I was just thinking about how sometimes, like, even maybe in the most recently, like your kid or kids will say shit to you that you go like, damn, I feel so insecure about the shit that they said, and like like an adult would say, and you're like, whatever, but a kid will say it and in such an honest way. And you're like, oh God, it's true. Yeah, God, you really see me. And, all of that like insecurity will pop up in whatever form and be like, damn, I'm not enough. Like I've been working so hard on this and I'm still not good at it. And, all this kind of stuff, which is true. We all have, room to grow, all the time. And I think that the practice is really to, when you have those feelings, especially people who are, so dedicated to being better, doing better, reacting differently, holding better space, being more nurturing to yourself and others, leaning in harder with tenderness, especially those kinds of people who are very tough on themselves for being better. Yeah, yeah, and almost just it's an intense thing. I get it. So especially for those folks, it's mad important to find a way to respond to yourself in your internal dialogue with kindness and with love, and like we were saying earlier, like creating that teachable lesson. Yeah, this is a triggering thing. You might feel this certain way right now, but you're the shit, boo boo. And, you might not be good at that thing, or you might have that thing that you got to work on, and that's okay. And this was a reminder for you that, you can do better. It's okay. I don't know. I just think that you got to like find the internal dialogue and find the patterns for yourself to like uplift yourself. Because all too often, in your weaker self, you can lean into things that aren't healthy for you in response, right?
Yep. Yeah, I love the idea of being enough and you can do better, that they exist together. If I'm not mistaken, you got a tour coming up.
Yes, sir. I'm going to be in your hood.
I'm going to book tickets today to Phoenix. So I'll get those taken care of. I'll probably,
Dude, we're going to have to meet up and give each other a real high five.
I would love that. Yeah, I would love to do that. Where can people learn more? So I know they can go to your website, but if someone is listening and they're not watching, where can they go to learn more?
Yeah, you can go to any of my social platforms. Instagram is at Nahko Bear, Nahkob as in boy, EAR. And then you've got the Medicine for the People, which is the band's name, which is also Facebook, Nahko and Medicine for the People. And YouTube, we've got all kinds of videos and things up there, and all kinds of stuff out there in the world. So take a look, see.
I would highly recommend that you pay attention to his platforms. Also, like, give a listen to some of his songs. I've referenced We Are On Time, some of his older albums and more recent albums both have such a character to them. What I also will suggest is that if you're anywhere near Phoenix, you come with me to the show.
There you go.
If you go see go see him somewhere else, let me know, and we can connect on the music journey that he's on through that. But I think, Nahko, more than anything, I really appreciate there are a couple themes that stand out today. This like confrontation of history and self and identity stands out to me. The link between music and art, and this like the natural manager that we have to like make sure things are taken care of, and then the artist that needs to be free to express, that stands out to me. And then beyond all that, the way in which you articulate how to stay in your lane, how to recommit to your lane, how to make sure that the way that your expression meets the world and how it stays true to you, the way that you defined your process and your tenets, like is just a beautiful way of giving me, I'll just be selfish, me an example of what it means to be grounded, to be centered, and to know yourself. So this was awesome, man. This was this is a highlight reel moment for me to just spend some time with you. Your music has had a big dent on me.
Hell yeah. Thank you for sharing that, man. Thank you for having me. I wanted to touch on the name of the podcast, right? Get Out of Your Way. Is that what it's called?
Get Out of Your Own Way. Yep.
Get Out of Your Own Way. And the reflection, those are lyrics in my song, Dear Brother. And that song, massive impact, on my life and in my family. And, when you reached out to invite me on, I saw the name of the podcast and I was like, oh, hell yeah. And it was a pretty easy yes for me. How many times in my life, I've been my own problem, and I think that it's really hard for people, for humans, for men as well, to look at yourself in points of conflict and in points of struggle and hardship at your own hand in being a part of the problem, and also being in your own way in terms of healing, because we often are projecting outwards upon other people for their part in it. And it's very difficult to hold both things and hold many things to be true at one time.
Nice.
So I just want to say, I love the name of the podcast. I think that you had great questions today, and that what you're doing here is important work. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you, man. That means so much.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to leave me fired up for like 72 days, man.
Let's go
back to this. I'll see you when you're here. It looks like it's November 5th here in Phoenix. So if you're tuned in and you want to join me, I'd love to have you join. We can make it a thing. But Nahko, I'm so grateful for your shares. Give him a follow. Pay attention to what he's producing and creating. There's an artist in you that might be inspired by the artist in him. And Nahko, I'm so grateful for your time, man. Thank you.
Hell yeah, brother. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.